Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we're talking all about the start of the college baseball and softball seasons.
And later, more NCAA basketball coverage as we approach March Madness.
Be sure to stick around for a new segment and this week's edition of Head to Head Pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry.
This is the one where there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
I'm always the get back game guy.
There's so many teams with so many good wins.
Because, they love seeing Clemson lose no matter what.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
Yeah,
Return of the King released 20 years ago today. There you go. And for that reason, give me the Noles.
I like being right more than I like being happy.
I think the committee made the right choice.
Florida State did not lose a football game. It's football. This is college football. How can you not be romantic about baseball? It's just such a tremendous sport.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
Gamecock baseball kicks off their season at Founders Park later today against Miami of Ohio. And Spencer, it was a great season for the Gamecocks last year, a very welcome return to form for the program. And they made it pretty deep into the tournament, eliminated by the national runner-up Florida in the Super Regionals down in Gainesville. We followed this team a lot in our time here, and so as people kind of see the stuff there, all the preseason accolades for this team. What stands out to you about this Gamecock baseball squad?
I think it's returning a lot of people, and they hit the transfer portal as well. As you can see, Ethan Petrie and Cole Messina coming back. That's huge for this team. It's the two probably biggest bats on the team from last year returning. You still got guys like Talmadge LeCroy. You've got Gavin Costas coming back. And, I think the hitting on a team that, JP, they mashed the ball last year. That was kind of their bread and butter. A lot of the hitting is going to come back. I think where a lot of the unknown lies in this team is in its pitching rotation. Lost the entire, weekend starting rotation to the MLB draft. How do you think they're going to replace that this year?
Well, they hit the transfer portal hard. They brought in the CAA Pitcher of the Year from the College of Charleston. It's time for the guys who are developing behind those pitchers to really step up. Matthew Becker looked like he was going to be the number one guy coming into the year, dealing with a little bit of an injury. It doesn't seem like it's going to be totally serious. The starting rotation for this weekend, Eli Jones will get the bump today. Made 22 appearances last season with 6 starts, going just under a 4 ERA with 63 strikeouts and 54 innings pitched. And then a big unknown. You got Dylan Eskew, who didn't appear much, and then Roman Kimball coming back from the Tommy John surgery on Sunday. Miami of Ohio, a team that struggled heavily last year, 21-35, but they're picked to finish 7th in a pretty competitive MAC conference. So, it could be a nice little early season test for the Gamecocks, but the pit, like you said, that lineup, it's why I think there's a big disparity in the rankings. You saw Perfect Game had him 13th, D1 had him 25th. It's because, people think the lineup is good enough to be highly ranked, but the pitching is so up and down, nobody knows how it's going to go.
It's literally just a question mark at this point. I think it's going to take time to kind of settle in, and then I think the rankings, they'll adjust to what the team is showing to start the year. But I remember they started last season against UMass Lowell, so I think starting it against Miami of Ohio will definitely be a little bit of a better test for the Gamecocks to start the year, and it'll get them a little better adjusted to quality of teams.
Absolutely, and then on Tuesday they face off against Winthrop, a team picked to finish 4th in their conference, the Big South, a very good conference in college baseball. And then on Wednesday against Queens, so that'll be a nice little reprieve after an interesting start to the year. But this Gamecock baseball team, Chris Veach, you have him locking down the last innings of the ball game is going to be very key for them. And it's just be about staying healthy. They struggle with injuries in the pitching rotation, struggle with injuries in the lineup. It's one of the more stacked lineups in all of college baseball. And, if the pitching is even close to average, I think they could definitely finish higher than 4th in the SEC East. But the SEC East is just completely stacked, Spencer.
It sure is. But, apart from the Gamecocks, there's 7 other ranked D1 teams in the Carolinas alone. It's not just the SEC. There are a lot of really good ACC teams and just, other programs in the Carolinas that are really proving themselves, JP, as we can see there. Wake Forest and Clemson kind of headlining the ACC. And, they're joined by Duke in the 12th seed in the national rankings, as well as NC State and UNC. And that's all 5 teams in the ACC?
Yeah, and that's not even counting like Virginia and Virginia Tech and all of them. Florida State, I know, got some votes some places. Boston College was really good last year. The ACC is just completely stacked in baseball. But, looking at NC State and UNC right there head-to-head, that's going to be a fun rivalry to watch all year, UNC and Duke. Coastal Carolina taking on all these teams in midweeks and in weekend series. Eastern Carolina looking to host another regional or super regional. They have the most super regional appearances without going to Omaha in the history of college baseball. Can they finally get over the hump? Coastal and ECU and Wake all picked to win their conferences in their preseason coaches polls. And all the way down there in the D1 poll is South Carolina, but they're a team that potentially has the most upside of anyone here except for Wake Forest. Wake Forest is just absurd. They have probably the best lineup with also the best pitching staff in all of college baseball. So it's going to be a very fun season to watch from our perspective. There's a lot of great baseball to watch. And I'm really excited for it. But we're talking a lot about baseball, but softball is getting really up there, isn't it?
They sure are. Gamecock softball has started the year really, really hot. And JP, they were undefeated going into last night. They did fall in the Puerto Vallarta Invitational to Wichita State, who's a team just outside the top 25. But earlier in the day, they picked up a win over number 13 Utah. And I would say the wildest thing, I guess, the good way to put it, about this team is not only the production that they returned, but they hit the portal, and the freshman class is getting involved right away. Sage Marjetko is the Illinois Gatorade Player of the Year for her junior and senior year. JP, I have some stats on the top of my head from her high school career. You ready for this?
Yeah.
She went 23-0 her senior year, gave up 0 earned runs, struck out 340 batters.
She wants to be Randy Johnston.
She might be. It's
yeah.
And on the scouting report, you're probably wondering what pitches she throws. It says throws everything. So, literally the entire pitching arsenal in softball in her repertoire, and she's already getting a ton of reps so far with the Gamecocks. She's 2-1 on the season with a 2.33 ERA. She has 2 saves and 20 strikeouts, and her and Elena Vaughter are kind of a 1-2 pitching duo, and the Gamecocks have relied on them heavily so far.
Yeah, and they went out and they got her from Stanford. Vaughter, one of the higher sought players in the country in the transfer portal. And one of the big things from last year's team that they said they wanted to get better at was hitting for power, and they've really done that so far at the start of this year. They're getting on base. We spoke to one of their coaches, and she said that the biggest tool for them is OPS, which is on base and slugging. It tells you how often you get on base and how hard you're hitting the ball. And it's one of the best and easiest stats in all of baseball. And it's very indicative of how good you are as a player. And South Carolina, I think that they have a really, really high ceiling this year in the SEC in softball.
They really do. They're predicted to finish 9th in the SEC, and I think that says more about the SEC than it says about South Carolina, because the conference is so beyond stacked in softball. But hitters like Riley Blampy coming back for her senior year, she's already batting .520. She's got a homer on the year, 7 RBIs, and doing it defensively. She had a diving catch that hit number 7 on SC Top 10 the other day. I mean, this team, they're at a .978 fielding percentage as a team. They play the game the right way, and they love to get on base, and they love to advance runners and run a lot. And that was something they did last year when they didn't have a lot of power in the lineup, but kind of getting more power but still having that base running potential makes them a really well-rounded team.
Absolutely, and we're going to take a quick break. After the break, we're going to be talking all about this weekend in college hoops. South Carolina men's basketball fell to the Auburn Tigers on Wednesday, snapping a 7-game winning streak for the Gamecocks. And that was an ugly one. And that's putting it lightly. That was brutal. I mean, you can see there Michi Johnson, Colin Murray Boyles, BJ Mack combining for the vast majority of South Carolina's points outside of those 3.
6.
Yeah, all but
horrible.
6. And, it's hard to perform, or it's hard to win on the road in college basketball. It's even harder when you just get out of the gate blitzed like the Gamecocks did. They took an early lead, and then after that, it was just completely over. I mean, Johnny Broome is one of the best players in all of college basketball. Looking at his stats on the year, it makes sense why he's up there for many of the National Player of the Year rankings. South Carolina, what you got to do is you just got to lick your wounds from this. You got to bounce back. Got a big home game against LSU. That's a game you should win. That's a game you should win handedly to kind of restore the national perception of this team that, you know, there's a fluke. Auburn's one of the hardest places to play in college basketball.
They're undefeated at home. And look how they shot the ball. Shot the ball over 55% from three. They only missed one from the charity stripe and 58% from the field. They couldn't miss. And frankly, outside of the three Gamecocks that accounted for 55 points, no one else could do anything for this team.
Yeah, so, you know, it's just Auburn is a very, 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 very good team. They're the only team, I think, in the SEC that's positioned to win well in March. Everyone else just has too great of flaws to really kind of overlook in terms of, like, who can go to the Sweet 16 and beyond. But, you know, South Carolina, get up out of Alabama. Don't look back. You know, the game in Tuscaloosa, the game on the Plains, whew.
Hopefully they don't have to go back. I think that's it for their journeys.
The SEC
in
tournament's is in Nashville this year, I think. So, you know,
Dodge
hopefully
the
we
bullet,
don't play
man.
Alabama or Auburn there. So, you know, getting away from that pathetic performance a little bit to get some of the more energetic, more fun on a national scale. We have potentially the game of the year as the number 1 UConn Huskies are taking on the number 4 Marquette Golden Eagles in a Big East Conference game, potentially for the ages. These are two heated rivals. They hate each other. They played back in Madison Square Garden in the Big East tournament last year. Marquette came away with a big victory as they went on. They won the Big East tournament. But UConn got kind of the last laugh as they went on and won the whole dang thing, winning the national championship. Spencer, you know, when you get a game like this, it's a 3 p.m. Fox tip-off. You know, it really is just what college basketball is all about, I think.
Yeah, and, you know, I was asking JP a couple weeks ago, like, who his number 1 team in the country was, because you've got UConn. At the time, UNC had a couple less losses, and Purdue was looking really good.
And Houston.
And I was asking him, I was like, JP, who's your number 1 team in the country? And he said, I saw Dan Hurley full court pressing up 40 points against, I don't even remember.
Xavier.
Yeah, against a random Big East squad. They were just murdering them. And
they were diving for loose balls, like face up guarding the whole way down the court, and it was like, okay.
That told me all I needed to know about this Huskies team, and I think it tells you a lot about Dan Hurley and what he's doing up there at UConn. Is they just play relentless basketball, and he's never satisfied, and you could really see that in last year's tournament run. Is they whooped every team. A lot of games were just not even close.
It was one of the better runs we've seen of a team in the tournament, and you know you have your star power in this game, Tristan Newton and Tyler Kolek going head to head. And you can see there just how they stuff up the stat sheet. They have great guys around them with Cam Spencer and Donovan Kling down low, and then you have for Marquette Cam Jones and Oso Ighodaro, and then. You know, two teams that have really been on a collision course. UConn's been number 1 since January 15th. They haven't relinquished it. The only times they've lost this year on the road against a Seton Hall team that is pesky and like really very skilled offensively, and then at Kansas, which is one of the hardest places to play in all college basketball. Meanwhile,
both
Marquette.
of those were close, very close games.
Yeah, meanwhile, Marquette is on an 8-game winning streak. But what's going to come down to this game, I think, is that UConn's defense is very good at preventing what Marquette likes to do. Marquette offensively, they love to get inside the arc. They're 12th in 2-point percentage. They hang on to the ball very well. UConn forces a lot of turnovers. They're they're 6th in the country in opponent 2-point percentage. You know, just two teams that are very, very good, and they do things at a high level to prevent what the other team does at a high level. It's a recipe for a great game. I'm very excited. You know, Shaka Smart, he went from on top of the world at Virginia Commonwealth to treading water at Texas. He went back home to Marquette, and he's been awesome there ever since. They play a very, you know, it's Shaka Smart, Dan Hurley, Tristan Newton, Tyler Kolek, Connecticut, Marquette, Fox, Gus Johnson. Does it get better than this?
It sure doesn't. I'll be seated.
We will be seated and watching. I can't wait.
It's going to be great, and I think this is a great preview matchup of March. You know, these are 2 of the top 4 teams in the country fighting for 1 seeds out here, really. I mean, this win will do it'll be huge for either team that gets it. But it's not the only huge matchup we've got this weekend. Is in the Big 12, a matchup between number 3 Houston and 10th ranked Iowa State will decide who's at the top of the conference. And this one's going to be a good one, JP. Is Houston, you know, they licked their wounds after the brutal Kansas loss. I mean, Kansas really just came out of the gates and kind of just laid the whoop down on them. The whoop down, is that a word?
Yeah, I think it is.
I was looking for the word smackdown there, but words have failed me. But Iowa State putting together some big wins of their own. JP, this one for the top of the Big 12. Looks like a good one.
It does. In Houston, one of their 3 losses on the year is on the road in Ames against the Cyclones. It's an Iowa State team that has been markedly improving each year under head coach T.J. Otzelberger. His first year, they went 22-13 and made a Sweet 16 run as an 11 seed. Last year, they got all the way up to a 6 seed. They were a top 30 team in KenPom. And,
we love our ratings.
Yes, we do. They're looking for their first regular season Big 12 title since 2001, a whopping 23 years ago. My God. 2 of the best players in college basketball are going to take the floor here. Is Jamal Sheed, a outstanding player, as well as his partner in crime in the backcourt, L.J. Cryer, who shoots 37% from 3 on 183 attempts already. Meanwhile, then you have Lipsey for Iowa State. But this is, it's another clash of what one team is really good at and another team. Iowa State, one of the better offenses in the Big 12, going up against the best defense in the country. I feel pretty confident saying that. Houston is just absolutely just suffocating in every facet of the game. But Iowa State's defense is no slouch either. They're 3rd in adjusted defensive efficiency. They're 1st in turnover percentage, so they're able to get in there and blow up teams very well in what they want to do offensively. So, we could be in for a just slugfest down in Houston. A lot of, back and forth, like actual fists flying, maybe 46-43 final score. But I'm very excited.
Yeah, real basketball sicko's dream right there.
Yes.
Just a low-scoring affair, but that's what we could be in for, and I think Houston's defense is going to be a key part of that. As you saw, number 1 in adjusted defense, number 1 in blocks. They're everywhere, and they play with such a tenacious pace and just trying to really slow down opposing offenses. But on the offensive end themselves, that duo of Cryer and Sheed, it's one of the best guard duos in the country, and I think that's going to be a key to the game is how does Houston shoot the ball? Because in Kansas was doing whatever they wanted. This game is in Houston, so I think, they'll have their home court, and they've been really good at home this year.
And it'll be a big question, I think, when we get to the tournament. Like, how good is Houston away from home? Because, they're 3-3 away from home. They've barely played out of the friendly confines. That's something that people were harping on Iowa State about. We'll see if they can buck that trend. But some teams that are looking to buck some trends as well. Introducing a brand new segment. It's Bubble Watch. We're going to take a look at some teams that are on the outside looking in or barely on the inside of the NCAA tournament, fighting for these few remaining starts. And, we're going to start off with a team that's very near and dear to my heart, the Seton Hall Pirates. Seton Hall out of the Big East. Spencer, I never shut up about this team. It's one of the more enigmatic teams of college basketball, I think, this season. They have some of the best wins in college basketball over UConn and Marquette, then big blowout wins against other tournament teams like Xavier and St. John's. But they also have some of the worst losses in the country, like Southern Cal, Iowa. They lost to a Rutgers team that, while they're improving a lot now, they looked really bad at the start, and then they lost by 26 to Villanova last weekend. Spencer, what are your thoughts on this Seton Hall squad?
Well, I think, you see the huge wins that they have over UConn and Marquette. Those are 2 of the best wins in the entire country. And as you mentioned, the bad losses are really, really bad. And I think it comes down to what kind of form they're getting into right now. Going into March, in their upcoming games are going to be huge for them. Taking down St. John's for the 2nd time, again, a team that's probably threatening the tournament themselves, that would be huge for them.
Be here next week where we talk about St. John's and Butler on bubble. The Big East has like 7 teams on the bubble, and I think the key really is getting to 20 wins and finishing maybe in the top 3, top 4 of the Big East. If they do that and they have a nice showing in the Big East tournament, it's hard to argue against just the strength of their wins. Some of their bad losses are becoming better. Rutgers is starting to threaten for the NCAA tournament themselves. They've won 7 of 8. Southern Cal got a big win over Utah last night. And they have the star power. Kadari Richmond, one of the best players in the country, dropped a triple-double a couple weeks ago against Creighton.
He's amazing.
Nearly had a triple-double against Xavier this week. They just need to, I think, get those predictive metrics a little bit better, the net and KenPom especially. But it's a team that, they're going to have their opportunities, because even after St. John's and Butler, they're going to take on Villanova, UConn, Creighton. And so all they have to do is prove themselves. But
especially against those teams that are kind of in the similar tier. in skill as them, as you mentioned, like St. John's and Butler, around the same level. If you can beat the teams that are also threatening for a spot in the bubble, those are the wins that are going to be like, well, they beat Butler.
Exactly.
It makes it super cut and dry. If they beat St. John's twice, it's, well, this team they look better than St. John's,
And they need to not lose by 30 points sometimes. And it's really going to be, I think, which team we're going to get. Shaheen Holloway had a great quote after the Xavier game. He was like, if you thought this team was going to, if you thought my team was going to show up the same way we did in that pathetic display in Villanova, you don't know me and you don't know this team. So it's really, if they can string together just the tough, if they can, emblematically take over the persona of their head coach.
Yeah.
It's a team that, we've seen them be able to beat UConn, beat Marquette. But going a little bit south for our next team.
Going to my home state of North Carolina, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in the ACC, also comfortably in the bubble watch.
Absolutely, one of the hottest teams in the country. They're undefeated at home, winning home games by a margin of nearly 20 points per game. Their bad losses all the way back in November. They lost to Georgia, a team that's just okay, and an LSU team in overtime, both at neutral sites. That just isn't really all that much this year. What's really missing, I think, from this resume, Spencer, is the big win. They had a chance at Duke last week. They get another chance against Duke, not this next upcoming week, but next week.
At home.
At home. If they can get that win, they definitely, they're fourth in the ACC. Spencer, it's a very fun team to watch. The ratings like them a lot. What are your thoughts on Wake Forest?
Well, I do think they're a really, really fun team to watch, and a lot of credit's got to go to Hunter Salas, putting up almost 20 points per game on the year. He's also got 4 rebounds to his name, shooting 40% from 3, and you need a player like this on your team to kind of get it done. If there's a guy you can count on every single game for this team, it's Hunter Salas, and he's going to be crucial in the upcoming games at UVA. That's another big win. And, Virginia's proven themselves to be a really, really solid team. Year in and year out, you can count on Tony Bennett to have a really good regular season. Now, you might not want to talk about his March Madness resume outside of, the year they took it home, but I think that's going to be a key, and that's going to build momentum towards that Duke game. And I do agree with you that if they can get the big win, it's going to be hard to say no to this team.
Yeah, maybe sweep Virginia, take a big win against North Carolina or Duke. And this is a team with the shooting they have and the coaching of Steve Forbes, who has done one of the best rebuilding jobs in the country. We're not very far removed from Wake Forest being maybe the worst high major program in college basketball. And they're here competing for the NCAA tournament in just, I believe, his 3rd year as the head coach of the program. A team that shoots like this can go on a run in the ACC tournament. And I think that, the ACC has proven time and time again that they are a force to be reckoned with in the tournament. They're starting to get a lot more respect this year than previous years. But a similar color scheme of our final team for Bubble Watch.
Taking it out west.
Taking it all the way out west to our beloved Pac-12, the Colorado Buffaloes. Our last team to watch out for this week suffered a brutal loss on the road against UCLA last night. And, the story of this team is, what are they doing away from home? They're 3-8 away from Boulder. They've had some great performances there. It's just going to be, they lost their opportunity to beat Arizona. They lost by 40 to them on the road earlier in the year. And they just need, I don't really know why the ratings like them that much. I like that they like them because this is a very fun team to watch. Tristan Da Silva, as you see pictured there, and KJ Simpson are a very fun duo there. But, Spencer, your thoughts on the Buffaloes and really kind of what they need to do to improve their statement, as it says there, they're endangered.
Much like Buffaloes in real life. I mean, JP, as fun of a team as this might be, you can't just lose every single game on the road. They haven't lost every single game, but you can't blow games to Arizona State, Cal, and UCLA. As you mentioned, those are bad losses.
Because if you flip that, they're 19-6. And 10-4
really
in conference play.
Yep.
That's a lock. In a Pac-12 that's pretty good this year with Oregon, Utah. UCLA has been improving. They just started the year off so badly. And then you have Arizona, who's been outstanding.
But that would also take their record away from home to 6-5. And and those are not great teams, JP.
No.
Those are teams that this Colorado team definitely has the skill to beat, and they probably would take them down at home. But for right now, they don't look like it. So, JP, I think it's another case of if they get a chance against some of these teams, first off, you got to take care of business. You got to beat the teams that are worse than you in the conference. No matter where you play them, You've got to find a way to get it done if you want to make the tournament, and you've got to find a way to try and get one big win, whether it comes in the Pac-12 tournament or in the rest of their regular season. I think a good win would do this team a lot of good.
Yeah, and the NCAA tournament's not played in Boulder. That elevation isn't going to do you any help when you're playing, if you make it there. And so, it's a Colorado team that can shoot the ball well. It has a good offense. The offense just needs to translate better on the road. And, maybe their rims are just really soft and friendly to them. I don't know. But, it's a team that you almost think that maybe they need to win out to make it to the tournament, or at least, put up some big wins in that span. They have nice wins. Washington State's a team that's very good. I didn't even mention them. They got a big win last night to move to 19-6 on the season. They have a big win over Richmond, a team in the A-10 that's looking like one of the best mid-majors in college basketball.
They typically are. Those Spiders, they know how to get to the tournament.
Absolutely, and so it's literally just get your mind right on the road. I don't know what their process is when they go. Do they go out all night? The night before the game.
LA's a tempting city, but JP, they looked horrible last night,
Yeah.
especially in the first half. UCLA was just really getting whatever they wanted.
And they imposed their will physically. And, Mick Cronin, he's an excellent coach. They've bounced back from a tough start. The Bruins have won 8 of 9. They're third in the Pac-12. They might end up on Bubble Watch here next week or something like that.
See you next week.
But, for Colorado, fun team. They just got to get right.
I couldn't agree more. And that's all we've got for you today, but we'll be right back after the break with this week's Pick'ems to wrap up yet another episode of Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie Pick'ems. At the start of Week 4, Spencer is still ahead with 15 wins and 9 losses, while I'm at 12-12, much like the UCLA Bruins. We're going to run through here. We got women's basketball.
Speaking of the Bruins.
Yeah, absolutely, Spencer. Oregon State against UCLA. We kind of doubted the Beavers last week. They've taken on the UCLA Bruins. Who you got?
I'll take the Beavers at home in this one. They've been a really solid team, and, I'm not going to doubt them a second time.
Absolutely, and I agree. The Beavers, they beat Colorado last weekend, and they have a great week coming up to really kind of rocket themselves up the standings as they're going to take on another Los Angeles team, as the number 11 Oregon State Beavers are taking on the number 10 Southern Cal Trojans. Spencer, who do you got in that one?
I lied. I will doubt them again. I'll take Southern Cal in this one. Juju Watkins, too powerful. I think she has a crazy performance, and the Trojans take it home.
I think Oregon State's going to do enough at home. I think, they'll be able to limit her star power, and they're just going to gut out a tough win against Southern Cal at home and put themselves in position for potentially a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Then moving on to some Big East action, we got number 15 UConn licking their wounds from South Carolina's butt whooping they put on them last week against the number 20 Creighton Blue Jays.
I will ride with UConn here. I know Creighton, they're a team that loves to shoot the 3-ball, a really dangerous team when it comes to March Madness. But I think the Huskies get it done at home. It's still a great environment up there.
I agree completely. They're going to come out hungry and ready to prove people wrong after that performance in Columbia last week. And then wrapping up our women's coverage, number 7 Kansas State against number 24 West Virginia.
I'm going to take K-State at home here. They've dropped in the rankings a little bit since we last talked about them, from 2 to 7. I still think they're a really good team in the Big 12, and I think they get it done.
I'm going country roads, take me home, baby. I think the Mountaineers get a huge road victory. They've been playing really hot lately. They're going to get on a big heater, and I think they're going to be able to pull off the upset against Kansas State.
Moving on to the men's side of the game, JP, number 1 UConn versus number 4 Marquette. Who you got?
Man, this is a clash of the Titans. We will be seated. We will be viewing. I can't wait. And the going gets tough. I think UConn's going to be able to dig deep behind their home crowd, get a big victory at home over Marquette.
I'm also going to take the Huskies. Again, I think Dan Hurley is just an insane guy, but I mean that in the best possible way, because that's what you want from a coach who's just like yelling in the timeout huddle, up 25 with 3 minutes to go.
He does this all the time. He's crazy.
Exactly. Give me the Huskies. Oklahoma versus Kansas. JP.
Man, Oklahoma's fraudulent. I don't care that they're at home. I don't care that Kansas is sucked on the road. Kevin McCullough Jr. is dealing with an injury. I don't care. I think Kansas gets a big win on the road over Oklahoma.
Yeah, I picked Oklahoma the last time. They also bit me, so I'll ride with the Jayhawks again. I think they get it done. I think they're a better team, but again, without McCullers, I think this will be probably a pretty close game. Staying in the Big 12, we've got number 3 Houston versus number 10 Iowa State. Who do you got?
Spencer, outstanding matchup. It's going to be very low scoring. Houston has their home crowd, has their home environment to thrive in. I think that's what's going to push them ahead. I think Iowa State's struggle shooting the ball is going to kind of come back to bite them. Houston's going to be able to control the glass and get a big win. I think Jamal Sheed puts in a big performance.
I've also got the Cougars at home. Again, at home, they're one of the best teams in the country. I think they get it done. I think their defensive just relentlessness might rattle Iowa State a little bit. And away from Ames, again, as we talked about earlier, it's going to be a big test for the Cyclones. I don't think they're up for it. And our final men's game of the day, number 18, St. Mary's versus San Francisco. A little WCC action. Who you got?
Absolutely. The Gales looking to stay undefeated in the West Coast Conference. Meanwhile, San Francisco looking to remain firm in second place and getting closer to first place while also putting a little stiff arm on Gonzaga out there. This is a great conference. It's one of my favorite mid-majors to keep tabs on and watch at 11 p.m. on CBS Sports Network every night. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Gales. They have one of the best defenses in college basketball. They have timely scoring. They shoot the three ball well. San Francisco's good. I think this is going to be a great game, but I think when the going gets tough, the Gales are going to get it done.
Well, I think the Dons are going to rise to the occasion. It's going to be a battle for that first place out all the way out on the West Coast. Maybe just for the sake of Bill Russell. Go Dons. That's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.